very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
You're in violation of secure communication procedures, Condor.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
Our fifth objective, a new world order.
There are no nations. There are no languages. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West.
Right-wing conspiracy.
What do you call it when the assassins accuse the assassin?
A new world order.
Whew. Thank you for plugging in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
Well, just a second there, Professor.
Very word secrecy is repugnant in a free...
Hello there, you lucky bastards. What is today? Monday, July the 27th. Hi, John Toad. Hi, Baby Bull. Oh, are you in for a treat tonight? I've been meaning to do this for a long time. It matters a lot. It really matters a lot. Number one, it matters what the real, how the you know what it cost really got started and why. Not how it ended up. That's tragic. It's got nothing to do with this podcast today. Who really started it and why? In order to understand that, you have to understand all the myths about the Third Reich. You don't have to understand them all today, but we got to get started. And the first myth is the myth of Wolfie Shickelgruber himself. I have preached and I have preached. Okay? You can't believe anything Charles Manson ever said. I don't care if he told the truth. When he told it, he was lying when he said it. You can't believe anything he says. You can't believe anything that Adolf, Hitler said. You can't believe any of it. The biggest problem in history is this. Everybody remembers him the way he wanted to be remembered. I'm not even going to dignify the myth by showing you the clips right now. All those clips you've seen, okay, he was this charismatic guru who mesmerized an entire nation, and they couldn't help themselves. They just followed him blindly. All the historians go along with that, because it's the most entertaining story. When the war was coming to an end, when it was over, it was a very convenient myth to tell everybody, oh, we're not at war with the German people, we're only at war with Hitler. Blah, blah, blah. It's not their fault. They were dragged along into this by this mesmerizing, right? It's all about watching the advertisements that he made about himself, people like Leni Riefenstahl, watching those movies he made about himself and choosing to believe them, because that makes history simple. It was just one guy and he fooled everybody, and now we got rid of him and now everything's fine. Who cares now? It was 100 years ago. This has absolutely everything to do with Charles Manson. This has absolutely everything to do with Roman Polanski and Wojciech Wachowski. Not to mention Roman Polanski's wife at the moment, Sharon Tate. Not to mention her BFF, Abigail Folger. This has everything to do with Bobby Beausoleil. This has everything to do with Billy Roberts. This has everything to do with Ronald Reagan. This has everything to do with Benjamin Netanyahu, everything to do with the murder of John Benet Ramsey. This has everything to do with the Mormons and Zionism. This has absolutely everything to do with, I'm not going to mention his name, I'm going to make you guess who I'm talking about. This has everything to do with Fred Cowan and the neo-whatsies. This has everything to do with everything, and it's finally time to start showing you what really happened. Here's what you need to understand about the you-know-what it cost, is that the myth of Adolf Hitler is nothing but a myth. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying he doesn't bear some of the responsibility. What I'm saying is there's a myth, and then over here there's what really happened. Now, a very interesting source, which I'm not even going to get into in this podcast, is this book. It is called, I don't like dust jackets. It's called The Hidden Hitler by, I forgot his name. The Hidden Hitler. This is where book jackets come in handy. Lothar Machten. This is the history of you-know-who that nobody ever wanted to read. They would sweep this under the rug. Hitler tried to sweep it under the rug. This was everything Hitler tried to sweep under the rug, pretty much. Except his finances. He uncovers everything Hitler tried to sweep under the rug. Heinrich Himmler sent out his own private detectives, right? He knew Hitler was trying to erase his past. He sent out his own private detectives to try to preserve the past. You got to kind of get in between those two guys. But the very first myth you have to understand and debunk is the myth of his popularity. He was never, ever, ever popular. He was not popular. He didn't mesmerize jack shit. You have to understand that. He was not popular. He was popular for a couple of weeks in the summer of 1940 when France had capitulated. It looked like the war was over. Germany had won. They were more or less the good guys. They had won. The war was over. And compared to World War I, it was relatively bloodless. They actually gave him credit. You can see there are three types of newsreel footage of him in public. There are the completely staged and totally re-edited speeches he gives to hand-picked audiences. The famous ones. They never show you the speech he gave he gave a speech at a factory the day after he was appointed chancellor, and it goes over like a Led Zeppelin. He even gets booed. They never show you that one. They only ever show you the ones that he wanted you to see. When you watch those videos, and they are videos, a lot of it isn't just hand-picked crowds, but the reason they filmed those at places like the new Sports Palace, the new Madison Square Garden in Berlin, the reason they filmed them at famous places, popular places, was Riefenstahl would take stock footage of crowds at other events and just edit it into these showpieces. And the sounds of the crowd were all dubbed in. I will show you. There's a very good YouTube documentary where it's on YouTube. It's called Television Under the Swastika. They found a cache of kinescopes from German television from the 1930s. And they tell a very different story. Goebbels and them did not take who programmed Tex Watson. Have you not been watching the Stones Unturned podcast? Were you asking rhetorically? They didn't take television seriously because there were no television sets. So they ignored it in favor of radio and film and newspapers and magazines. They ignored television. So television had a free hand. That documentary has clips of reality shows, cooking shows, housekeeper, homemaking shows, how to change a baby's diaper, how to grow sunflowers. And it has footage, live television coverage of events that you've seen the propaganda films a billion times of. When Mussolini arrives for his state visit Hitler and the new regime. Well, the live TV coverage is hilarious. You have all these dignitaries, some of them wearing their modern clown suits. They're fascists, they're Nazis, SS. Some of them are not. And everybody's wandering around the parade ground looking for their spot, their mark for the cameras. And all this goes out live over TV, and they have kinescopes of this. There's a very, very, very famous shot of Hitler in his Mercedes convertible limousine. He's standing up. He's going down the road, and crowds have just turned out along the road, and they're cheering and they're waving. This was all staged. You've seen that shot a billion times. It was all staged for the cameras. There's live TV coverage of that. It's a bend in the road. What is left of an old village. A few buildings are still standing. They have set up temporary grandstands, and there's a hill, and they get this crowd. The TV cameras are behind the crowd looking down the hill at this bend in the road. And the crowds are all fenced, they're all gathered so that they will be densely packed in the background of this shot. They used paid, you've heard of Colonel Tom Parker paying girls to scream for Elvis and throw their panties on the stage. You have heard of promoters doing the same thing for Sinatra. They did the same thing for Shickelgruber. They had paid people show up. They just had the town show up, and you see the limo go by, and it is being followed by Leni Riefenstahl on a flatbed truck with her camera on the tripod, and they're taking the shot that you've seen a billion times. The live TV coverage shows that it's all been staged, and nobody's cheering out loud. They're all waving. They all know it's silent film. So very few people are cheering. They're just waving and smiling for the camera. That's all they're doing. The sound of the crowd was dubbed in later. He wasn't the slightest bit popular. He wasn't that popular in his own party and in the stormtroopers. It was all fear, intimidation, blackmail, and bribery and flattery. He wasn't popular. So when you read all these biographies and see all the documentaries trying to explain his popularity, that's why it doesn't add up, because he never was popular. So who was he, and what did he really do? He never had a single idea. All he ever did was memorize pamphlets and bumper stickers for his speeches. Now, when he's giving his really famous speeches, he's all hyped up on meth, and he's in his ecstasy. If you listen carefully, he's not screaming, he's singing. He's playing a part. He's playing himself in an opera about himself. This is his lifelong dream. And this is what he was allowed to do most of the time. He was allowed to play with his Legoland Germania toys and dream this role. And once in a blue moon, he would play this role. People who met him, people like Orson Welles said that he was just a wind-up doll. There was nothing there until he was poked, and then he would rattle off some memorized speechlet. And then he would go back to shoveling food down his throat or whatever. People who met him, and then there were the people who said all he ever talked about was being assassinated. They spend a day with him, right? He'd come to your town, you were the mayor, and he went around town, and you got to be seen with the Fuhrer. Thanks, Medley. Thank you very much. Mwah. He would all he talked about was there could be a bomb under there, there could be a sniper up there. Every time he would go to his hotel room or whatever, and he would look out the window and say, "There's a sniper over there." He learned all this. He did learn all this in the army, but that's it. He didn't do anything. He didn't negotiate anything. He never did anything. He was an excuse, and at best, he was an enabler. So what's the truth? The Sage of Key has a show on how they did this for the Beatles. Yeah. Who started it was Franz Liszt and Niccolo Paganini. You've seen the movie Listomania? That's actually pretty historically accurate. He's the first rock star. And then you get Paganini, who was like 6'7", had hands, he could, made Wilt Chamberlain look like a pygmy. Paganini would walk out on stage with his fiddle, his violin, he would take out a pair of shears and he would cut 3 strings off the violin, leave 1 string, and then play the concerto or whatever like a rock star with 1 hand on 1 string. His hands were so massive. They're the first ones. And according to legend, the girls would scream and throw their underwear on stage. That's where it all starts. Well, they did the same thing for You Know Hootler. Now, let me start this thing before I forget. All right, members only in 5 minutes. So what really happened? Who was he really? Where did he really come from? And who created him? He was manufactured, trained, taught, created. More so than Charles Manson. But it matters a lot, not only because this is exactly how Manson was trained. There's more than one Charles Manson. There are many Charles Mansons. There were many Hitlers in Munich, let alone all over Germany in 1919. He wasn't the only one. He's the one who took root and sprouted. Actually, he wasn't. Well, the whole book is just plagiarized from already published material, plus a bunch of lies he tells about himself. It's all lies. All the biographical facts were complete and total lies except his birthday, the day he joined the army. It's all lies. It's all fake. And he had a lot to cover up, not just the fact that he probably had a Jewish ancestor, but that his father was not only born out of wedlock, but that he himself was the product of an incestuous marriage between Alois and Clara. Clara was his niece. But all the myths that he tells, and they still believe them to this day, and they just don't add up. When you realize that the Zodiac Killer was a fictional character created deliberately by, quasi-legal military intelligence agencies for not just for propaganda purposes, but for other purposes. As soon as you realize that the Zodiac Killer is a fictional character, and you take all the profiles of the Zodiac, blah, blah, you throw all that in the garbage where it belongs, it's very easy to figure out what really happened. And as soon as you realize that the myth of Shickelgruber is nothing but a myth, as soon as you realize that the myth of Manson is nothing but a myth, as soon as you realize that the myth of the Son of Sam is nothing but a myth, it's very easy to see what happened. You don't have to go to all this fuss and bother. You don't have to hire Leni Riefenstahl to tell the truth. What you need is somebody like that to cover up. And you don't need somebody like that to cover up something that's buried deep and nobody will ever find out. You don't need to cover that stuff up. You need to cover up stuff that's laying right on top of the ground for everybody to see. But why does that matter? So what? It has the truth about him has absolutely everything to do with the phony kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby. It has everything to do with J.J. Nosovitsky. It has everything to do with Catherine Scher. It has everything to do with Polanski, Frykowski. It has everything to do with Tate. It has everything to do with Abigail Folger. Has everything to do with Zodiac. It has everything to do with Son of Sam. Well, here's a couple of things about the Beatles. Number one, there are a lot of good bands, but they're either good on stage or they're good in the studio. Very few bands were good at both. Most of the studio albums you've heard about from a lot of your favorite bands, it wasn't the band. It was the lead singer and a backup band to make the studio album. The Beatles were one of the very few bands that were both good on stage and entertaining on stage, not just playing their instruments, but entertaining the crowd, and were very good in the studio. Paul is dead. Miss him. Three brilliant songwriters, all in one band, and the right producer. And they had the right drummer. He never inserted himself. But the Beatles recorded 202 songs, and you can identify every single one of them just by listening to the isolated drum track. Not very many. I don't think there are any other. Nobody else can say that. And nobody paid any attention to him at the time. But